not worried about that because I think ultimately Labour does well when we are offering hope, optimism, aspiration for the future and marry that with the deep compassion that we have for everybody in society. And the reason that the momentum is with us in this campaign is because we've had that positive offer to people. If you look historically in the 1940s, we offered that aspirational, positive sense of where Britain can be. People bought it. We did it in the mid-1960s with the white heat of the technological revolution with Harold Wilson. And then, of course, we did it with Tony Blair in 1997. We have used that same formula throughout this campaign, and that is why we've got the momentum. And frankly, you've seen the Conservative Party's campaign run into the ditch because they're doing the nasty negative campaigning, which people are so tired of. And so I'm not worried at all. Actually, I'm really, really boosted and up for it, as is everybody in the Labour Party. But we approach this with humility. You're not going to see hubris on the part of the Labour Party. We know we went down to the second worst defeat in our history in 2010. We've won back lots of support, but it's not over until people actually get to the ballot box, and we're fighting for every single vote in this election. I don't know. I mean, you have two letters that have appeared in the Telegraph. You had one that appeared towards the start of the campaign, which was, if you could say, if you accept the argument that they represented businesses, the 100 names, 0.0002% of the business population. And then you saw the farce of this small business letter, which turns out not to be a letter at all, frankly, but a petition, which people signed over and over again. There have been various deficiencies. A number of the signatories have actually said their names should be pulled. I'm not particularly worried about that. We'll let the Conservatives get on with messing around like that. We'll focus on the real issues in this campaign and real people and real businesses, large and small, in every single part of the country. Well, to be honest, I always thought that the more people saw of Ed, the more they would like him. And people tended to forget that, David Cameron has been the leader of his party for a decade now and had already been through a general election campaign with all the scrutiny that comes with that. And that really brings you to the people. And I always thought once Ed underwent the same scrutiny and exposure to the public that they would like him more and more. And you've seen that throughout this campaign. And you've also seen in him incredible confidence. He's been very statesmanlike. This man is ready to be your Prime Minister. And I think people see that. And it's something that you can't really describe, but it's there. And that's what we've seen happen during this campaign. Well, where I'm campaigning, which is all over London, but in particular obviously in my own constituency, the feeling on the street is great. People want to see a Labour government again. There is no enthusiasm for David Cameron. There's no enthusiasm for this government. And actually, that's not surprising, because I try and think of the tangible things that you actually see in my area that have been as a result of this government, and I don't really see anything that you can point to. Whereas you look in my constituency at our new healthcare centres, new and improved healthcare centres, we've got 6 of them, or the 9 Sure Start children's centres, or the older people who benefit from pension credit, which keeps them above the poverty line. You could list so many more, but there are many tangible things that you go, right, yes, that was Labour. What is there that you could say this coalition has been responsible for, other than misery, the bedroom tax, people having to leave estates in my constituency and go and live elsewhere because they can't afford to live there because of the things they're doing. Well, look, I've been speaking and addressing a conference today on International Workers' Memorial Day, where we commemorate and remember workers who've been injured or died at work. And of course, in that context, the NHS is more important than ever. We have seen huge disruption brought about by a top-down reorganisation of it by this government. We've seen market mechanisms and competition introduced into what is not a business but is a national treasure and service provided to people. And we've seen chronic issues, particularly with waiting lists soaring and a crisis in our A&E, and I see that locally. And that is why our pledge to put in place a high value property tax and a tobacco levy to make sure we get the funding into the NHS to help sort this out has been so welcomed by so many people. On housing, particularly, I mean, it varies depending on what part of the country you're in, but obviously, say in London, whenever I have mentioned our offer and what we're going to do to bring an end to the Wild West in the private rented sector, and actually ensure that tenants get a good deal, it always gets a clap. People like the idea of having a 3-year tenancy. They like the idea of no longer being ripped off by letting agents every time they move. They like the idea of having some security around the level of rent increase they face during the course of that tenancy, which of course we're going to put a ceiling on. That is incredibly popular as renters, as a share of the housing market, become bigger. But of course, if we want to ensure that people can afford to buy, one of the things we've got to do is build more homes. And we've seen the lowest rate of new build under this government since the 1920s, which is why, as I just mentioned at the conference here, we will be building 200,000 new homes every year by the end of the next Parliament, because we've got to sort this out. We're going to ban exploitative 0 hours contracts. We've got 1.8 million 0 hours contracts. They've become the norm in so many sectors of our economy. That's not right. We have to do something to deal with that. We need to get people's wages up, which, as I told conferences, why we're going to get the national minimum wage up beyond £8 by 2019. We're going to incentivise employers to go further than that through tax rebates to pay a living wage to employers, and we're going to stop agency workers being exploited and abused as well. No other party is offering our package at this general election. So you've got a very clear choice. You've got a Conservative government led by somebody like David Cameron, who attacks people who want to take action to deal with things like exploitative 0 hours contracts, at the same time that he says he didn't want to be on one himself. And you have a Labour Prime Minister in Ed Miliband who will actually do something about these things to make sure that work pays for you, that you have more security, and that you have happy, fulfilling work. I think you deserve to be paid more, which is why we're going to get the minimum wage up beyond £8 and incentivise people to pay a living wage. We believe you need security, which is why we're going to end the Swedish derogation in respect of agency workers and also ban exploitative 0 hours contracts. And we don't think that the way we're going to grow our economy is by attacking your terms and conditions and rights of work. Now, if you believe in that, vote Labour at this general election.